everybody. Welcome back to the Spots of Love podcast. I am your host, Karan, one of the admins here in the Barney History Fans. I'm having a lot of fun doing this podcast. Like I've said on previous podcast episodes, talking to the fans here in the community has been a lot of fun for me because I don't get a chance to usually do that a lot. So hearing personal stories that might relate to mine or even experiences that are different is what makes this podcast so special. Today, I'm really excited because we get our first guest who is not necessarily a fan of the show, someone who has had their hand involvement in the show in the early years. And I know it's someone that a lot of you have been really wanting to hear from a little bit more. And so I'm excited today to have our good friend, Jess Nelson here. Jess, how are you?
Hi, Mr. K. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I have to say, I'm really excited to that you agreed to do this and to talk to you sort of face to face. I see you all throughout the community over the last few years, especially. And it's really an honor to be able to sit across from you and have a conversation with you. So thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thank you. Likewise. I'm really thrilled with the popularity of Mr. K's Clubhouse and your success, and congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I learned from the best. Barney was my childhood. That's where I found my love for music and acting, and where I was introduced to a lot of the first things that I was learning as I was growing up. So that's where I drew a lot of inspiration from for our show. So the success hopefully is something that should be happening because I'm trying to follow in the footsteps that you guys all created for us in the early years. So thank you.
Well, that's really flattering. I'm glad we could impress you the way we did, and our show was so successful and magical that I'm glad to see you take the steps that you're taking.
Thank you. So the first question that I have here, I always kind of start it the same way in our podcast is just what was your introduction to Barney? So what were you doing before Barney? How did you get to work on Barney and Friends?
Well, it's an interesting story. I was an art director freelancer in the Dallas Fort Worth area back in the 1990s. 1980s, 1990s. I moved to Texas in 1980 from California.
Oh,
but
nice.
by the time 1990 rolled around, I was pretty much involved in putting together theme shows and sets for satellite television and commercials and commercial TV, independent films. And I had just left a feature film and was applying for an art director position with Oliver Stone when JFK was being filmed here in Dallas. And at the exact same time, I went in for my third interview, and I was about to go in for my third interview when Barney's producers, Kathy Parker, Cheryl Leach, Dynasty Shazer, gave me a call. I can't remember which one of them called me first, but I had been doing some setting and sets up in their studio in Allen for a lot of commercial companies. And when I got the call from them, they said, hey, could you help us put together a kids show for about this purple dinosaur? And of course, I knew nothing about Barney or anything at that point. But my choice was either work for Barney for 3 videos, which would probably be about 6 months work, or 6 weeks work with Oliver Stone. Now there's the balance. There's the fame of working for a big producer, a big director, or the financial part. What would help me survive the longest? So I chose Barney, and you know what? It's the best decision I ever made.
Nice. That's awesome. So you came in, was it the second set of the 3 Backyard Gang videos?
Yes.
Yeah.
After the Sandy Duncan videos were popular, and there was about a 3-year or 2-year hiatus, no Barney videos. And then they brought me in to help them with the art and sort of upgrade the art a little bit on the show. And so I stepped in for the first thing I was doing was building sets. So I built the Christmas one, Waiting for Santa. And that was my first one. And then, of course, after that came Campground
Mhm.
And then after that came the first Schoolhouse, Barney.
Yeah. That's
Barney
awesome.
Back to School.
Yeah. Did you talking about all those different sets that you designed over the years for Barney, do you have a favorite one out of all of them that you got the chance to work
Oh,
on?
absolutely, hands down. At the peak of my career, the best. You know, that was Imagination Island.
Oh yeah.
It was a magical fantasy, and everything came together. All the art departments, people, in the production people, the cameraman, the director, everybody came together and just made a fabulous, fabulous show with, of course, Stephen White's script,
Yeah.
which we worked together on. It was great.
That's one of my, and I think you guys hear this a lot. Imagination Island is one of my personal favorites, but it's a lot of those fans' favorite videos because it was.
Oh, I hope so.
I think it was just because it was like so much bigger than what we had seen Barney up to that point.
You know, it kind of had a feature film feel to it. And that's the way we kind of wanted to design it, so that you had a character that, of course, was the protagonist, Barney, and the kids. And then you had an antagonist, which was the professor. But he wasn't really a mean person. He was just misguided. And the kids soon, you know, took care of that. And so we brought in as many elements visually and special effects as we could. And so it really was. It was a beautiful show. And I'm proud of it, as you can tell.
Yeah, you should be. Yeah, it really was amazing. I think the greatest thing about that specific project that Barney did was whether you were a Barney fan or maybe not even a fan, if you were new to Barney or weren't necessarily a fan, that showed you a different aspect of what Barney could be, which I think made it even that much more special.
Well, it was always a very difficult thing. Barney was designed for 4-year-olds. It was designed for this preschool set, and it was never really understood by adults. It was understood by parents with small children. And so it's very difficult. And there was many failures during the life of Barney where people have tried to bring in adults. And, you know, things are going on today that same and with that same problem. And the thing is, the show that could creep into an adult's approval is like Imagination Island. Now, Disney has put together a few shows like that. Well, several shows like that, what am I saying? But Barney never has. So it's a challenge, and it takes the right team, the right writers, the right understanding of what and who Barney is, and you know what's it all about. And if people would just concentrate on those preschoolers, that 4-year-old mind that needs to be entertained and educated at the same time, and they love things that most people don't, like repetition, tons of repetition, the dancing and the hand play and the things that little children really love. That's what Barney captured. That was the magic and the innovation of the show. And that's why it became so popular with kids.
For sure. And I think that's what those adults, I think they underestimate it. Because when you look at, and I kind of did this when I started my show, in a sense, when you look at children's content, it looks so simple that you underestimate all the elements that it takes to make a project like that work and actually stick, especially to young kids, because kids have no problem telling you they're not interested in anything. So it's harder. It's almost harder to capture them and keep them for those 30 minutes or sometimes those 45-minute specials. So I think a lot of people underestimate the work that it took for all of you, from the art aspect to the writing to the music to the people on this show in front of the camera to make that magic happen.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, it's such a great feeling when you know that you've captured them and they're tuned in and they're happy and they're dancing and they're just having a great time. The first time I really, truly experienced that was at the Majestic Theater in Dallas when we did the very first concert. And that just opened my eyes with the children dancing in the aisles and just totally tuned into what was going on. And that's rewarding. it was rewarding for everyone.
For sure.
The musical department, the camera, the cameraman, the director, you know, the art department. Yeah, we all knew that we hit it on the mark.
Definitely. Definitely. When it comes to all those different sets that you designed over the years for Barney, did you kind of have free reign to kind of design what you wanted, or did the producers and other people kind of give you basically an assignment and say, this is what we're looking for, and then you just created it off of that?
Well, the first thing that a production designer does, or an art director does, is they request a script. It's got to be in the script. We don't know anything. We're totally blind. We haven't designed a thing until we get that script in hand. Okay. We read the script, and then we can figure out then what they need. Now, we may make suggestions, and the script may change a little.
Sure.
But it's at that point, it's a give and take. It's a design. It's a design meetings with the producers and the writers, and everybody then working together as a team comes up with what I need to build and what we need to look at and what are the special effects. You know, one of my specialties was I was pretty good at special effects. You know, we could build things that you could shoot on the camera in those hot studios, like ice cream that wouldn't melt. That. I think I talked to you about that one time.
Yeah.
I mean, you're building a pie or something.
I was making pies,
You're making pies, or you made pies.
Yes.
And I suggested, you know, make them a la mode.
Yep. You definitely did.
We did that with a combination of colorized sculpty clay or Play-Doh, and then we spray a little glycerin on it, make it shiny. As long as the kids didn't eat it and get sick, you know, hey, it didn't melt.
Exactly. That's awesome. When you joined in with those early Backyard Gang videos, did you expect Barney to? And I think a lot of people who work in the show have been asked this on interviews, but did you expect Barney to blow like it did?
Yeah. Well, good question. No, I didn't. You know, I was like a hired gun. You know, I was the art guy, popular art guy doing sets and stuff in town. And so this was a show. And I kind of went into it with that in mind. They needed help. They wanted help. They requested my art capabilities, my design capabilities. So that was it. Fine. You know, who knows? 3 months later, I could have been out trying to get on another, you know, major film or something.
Sure.
And then, of course, after I left Barney, I did work on some films and some TV specials. And the executive producer for Barney, Dick Leach, actually, I kept working with him on his projects. Oh, cool. And there was a lot of films. They were educational films for the Christian community. And I worked on a few films like that because, you know, Dallas is in the Bible Belt, and that's a lot of work you get. If anyone wants to work in the television industry or film industry or videos or anything, you're going to be working on some religious programs, you know, regardless of the faith or the sect, whatever. That's what you wind up doing.
Cool. So, let's change gears a little bit. If I have my facts correct, you were the one who helped design when BJ was being introduced. Weren't you one of the people who helped design what he looks like?
Yes. You know, of course, Irene Corey Associates, Irene Corey and her niece Susan Lockhart. They were the soft sculptures and the designers of the costumes. Sure. Well, as things came along, there was a block between how the BJ costume should be designed. Art department had some ideas. Of course, Irene Corey had ideas, and then it became to become a loggerhead. Nobody could come up with a BJ. So since I was a good friend of Irene Corey's, we'd worked together on feature film. We had a really nice camaraderie and a good working relationship. So I came in and with some design suggestions, and yeah, I helped BJ come to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, you definitely should be. When designing that character, is the version that we saw in season 2, that very first version of BJ, was that always like, once you guys worked together and came up with a design, was that the original design, or were there things that ended up different from what we saw on TV than what was initially in the sketches?
No, that was the design that was created. Of course, it changed when the body actor changed, and they wanted to make the costume smaller, the BJ and the Baby Bop costume, with little people being the actors, the body actors. And so, yeah, that's a pretty drastic change. And the reason for that is the little children that would come in and visit the sets and visit Barney in person, see him for the first time. A lot of children were just frightened to death of this huge 7-foot purple thing. You know, they weren't used to seeing Barney in that way. They saw him as this little character on television. Yes. And they saw him as plush toys. In their imagination, he was small. But the first time, the reality was too much for him. So it was a production decision by the producers to try to make the other dinos smaller.
Yeah, I like that. I think it goes to show with BJ's design how talented you and obviously Irene, Corey, and associates were when creating this character, because when it came to obviously the initial ideas for Barney and then even the initial ideas for Baby Bop, they were drastically different than what ended up on screen. But for you guys to design a character like BJ, and then it aside from him getting smaller, and obviously his edges and things started to round out over the years, but the overall concept of who he was coming from paper to screen, and not really changing much aside from the size, I think really tells or shows and speaks for itself how talented you guys are, and the work that you guys did on that show, for sure.
Well, thank you. I was requested by Cheryl Leach to take over the dino costume production because we could see there were problems in replicating the costume. You know, it's such a difficult costume to replicate because it's a soft sculpture, and every artist that gets a hold of foam will come up with their own design, and it may be similar, it may be off. And so the goal when I took over that department was to make sure we could standardize the costumes so that every time he got shot in on the video, on a film, on a public appearance on television, or in concerts, the attendees would see the same character. And standardizing the costume wasn't easy because we had to deal with all these personalities that were actually building them. But we found that by replicating pieces of Barney, like his head, which we could take molds and we could make molds of, and feet, and then standardize the patterns so that everyone understood what they did and how to do it. We did accomplish that. And before I left, that was one of the most successful things that I felt I did, was we standardized the characters, and then they could reproduce them, and they would look alike for years. Well, nowadays that's going to change, it looks like.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about those changes here a little bit later. But yeah, the work that you guys did that to establish all three of those characters in those early days definitely did set it up for what we had for the 20+ years that the original Barney was on the air. When you left the show, is there a reason why you left? Was it a personal thing, or was it just switching art? Why would they? I guess what we've always wondered is what was it that had you leave the production after season 3 instead of sticking around?
Yeah, it's in a way it's kind of personal because when you work real closely with a lot of people on a production, you sometimes come up with personality conflicts. Generally, we worked out everything, but I was getting offers outside of Barney for some very big art projects because I am a sculptor and I'm a muralist, and some of these projects were so big, I couldn't refuse them. For my art career as an artist and a sculptor,
definitely
a muralist, I just had to make a decision, you know, and I wanted to work part-time for Barney, you know, bring me in like a part-time director or something, but no, they didn't want that. They wanted somebody in there permanently and to do the production design work. And they found a very good person to do that. And so I went on, but I stayed in contact with everybody, and our friendships are still to this day.
That's
awesome. Just love the team, and you know, shout outs to the art department, art directors, you know, Ray Henry and Elizabeth Felton, you know, those guys made the work so great, and all of the the costume design, wardrobe head by Lisa Albertson. You know, these guys, I love them all still.
For sure.
And I still contact working with Dynasty Shazer, and I don't see too much of Kathy Parker or Irene Corey's passed on, but Cheryl Leach. You know, I just we're not in contact, but we had a great team, and I still have contact with a ton of them on Barney Plush fan site on Facebook. I'll give that a little plug right now. A lot of you guys are members of that fan club,
for sure,
group, and it's very successful. It's going to be hitting 5,000 members pretty soon.
Yeah, that's
hopefully this year.
Yeah, good. Congratulations on that. Yeah, that's. I was going to ask about that later, but since you brought it up, we can. Let's talk about it now. Plush fans. I don't know if you know, but History Fans was created because of Plush fans.
Yeah, I know. I can see that develop. Yeah, because there was a lot of people that wanted to hear more of the history, less so much about the plush toys. You know, but that's the reason I really built the site, was because after all, I did design the Barney plush that was used on PBS shows, because Cheryl Leach wanted a new Barney, not the commercial ones that they were using for the Barney and the Backyard Gang videos, but a new one, because they didn't want the plush to be something that was commercial.
Sure.
You know, it would be promoting on a PBS public television, which was supposed to be a nonprofit situation. Yeah. But you know what? History tore that whole idea all apart, because she sent around one of the dolls that I designed to the toy companies, and they replicated it the best they could for a price that it could be replicated.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's why I came up with Barney Plush fan group, and sort of made that the theme of it.
Yeah,
and the History Channel, the History Barney group is fabulous. I became a member of that too.
Yeah, we have you in there. We're grateful to have you there, and a lot of us, like especially as admins, are in the Plush fans community too. They're both very necessary groups, I think, for when it comes to Barney. There's such a big presence of Barney fans, and I hope I'm not speaking wrong, but I believe you're the first person who was part of that production to create a group like this, and then be very active and conversational with the fans. And then, of course, we see Steve White, Bob Singleton, Bob West, and those guys join in, and now they're also that way. Yeah. But I think you opened that door.
All members, and they're all admins of the group. Yeah. I brought in as many team members from Barney as I possibly could, and you know, the invitation's out there for any of them to join the group. But there was a reason why I started the group. It was a talk I had with Bob West.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, he said, Jess, he says, you've got to you've got to start talking to the fans. He says, you need to come up with something. You need to come up with a fan group and socialize with them because they're great. He says, and you need this. And I said, well, okay, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how
That's
it happened.
awesome. Well, we love Bob West. I'm glad he talked you into doing that because it's one thing that we in the Barney community really appreciate about this production is that there's so many of you who helped shape our lives as children growing up that there's not a lot of fan groups for shows or movies or things like that where the people who worked on it is willing to or go out and have conversations or talk to their fans, whether it's social media or Comic-Cons like Bob West does. And so I think we feel just really honored to be able to speak with all of you, even if it is just through a comment section sometimes to kind of get your stories and your experiences in a way that I don't think, and I might be speaking for everyone, I don't think we ever thought growing up that we would be in this position where we can speak to you all. That's not how it was back in the 90s before social media or internet.
That's
you can
true.
just speak to the people who inspired you. So
that's the plus side of the internet. Yeah, there's a lot of negatives, but I really enjoy talking to the fans. I do. I don't get to talk to them very much. I'm a caregiver, and most of my day is takes care of my wife Carol, my time. So I hope everybody understands that just because I can't get back to you or get to you right away, I at times will. And I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy the fans. They're the greatest. And what else can I say? I try.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate it. When creating Plush Fans, coming up with that idea and officially starting it, you said that you're almost at 5,000 members. Did you think it would grow to be as big as it has so far?
Had no idea. I hoped it would.
Yeah.
I put some promotions in there. We had Ray Henry and I, we have a lot of plushes sitting around that we purchased over the years. I mean, some of the Barney team members collected everything there was that came out. And some of those collections are out there. I can't mention who has them, but I thought that, what, between Ray and I, we have some extra really nice Barney plush dolls that are becoming very, very collectible as Barney memorabilia items. And so I thought, well, let's give away some. And so we had little contests, and everybody, that wanted to join the contest would have a chance. And we had drawings and winners. And so, yeah, it was good. Yeah. So we did try, and we still try to promote a little bit. I tried some direct advertising, but the world is still full of a lot of Barney haters.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't understand them. I don't know why. They just are misguided. They don't understand, and they're bigoted. What can I say? And so I got too much feedback from those ads from those individuals. So there's other ways. I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy dealing with that aspect of, the mean ones out there.
Yeah, definitely. I don't understand it either. I think it's because of what Barney stood for, which is just this unwavering love. No matter who you are or where you come from, you're loved. And there's a lot of people in the world who never experienced what that's like to constantly be told that they're loved or shown love. And so I think it's almost a pushback kind of thing from those people. That's
true. There's a balance has to be reached there, because it either becomes cult-like, where you've got a religious figure you're creating, or it becomes common concepts of love and caring and taking care of your neighbor. Now those can be religious goals, and they are in all the religions in the world. back in college, I studied theology and religion, and I came to the conclusion that humans need a religion to rely on to answer all the questions that no one has answers for. In this life, we have no answers, you know. So we rely on faith and people and characters to teach us how to live. But even if you're an atheist or an agnostic, you can still have love and caring and take care of people. You know, I don't want to get into theology or religion, but I've always felt that Barney was made a target by a lot of religious groups that just didn't really understand what was going on or cared to.
For sure. I definitely agree. The one thing that I say about love, and I kind of use it like in my everyday life, is that you can't really fight against love. You can only reciprocate it. Like, people will push back against the message of love and kindness and those things, but you don't really win those fights. You know, it's the love always comes above that. The only thing that you can do to counter love is just reciprocating it to the people around you and that kind of thing.
It's a learned talent, love, and you can usually credit your forefathers, your mother, your father, your family, or your friends, or your caretakers for learning. And it saddens me that some people never do that, learn that.
Yes, I agree. What's next for plush fans? You're almost at that 5,000, or you are there, and it's going to keep growing. Do you know what's next?
Oh man, that's a head scratcher. Yeah, I don't know what to come up with next. We'll figure out something
for sure, but
it'll be fun and it'll be interactive. So we'll let the fans know when we get a little closer. Perfect. I kind of wait till the very end and then spring it on people. So. Plus, I got to go find whatever we're going to give away. You know, we're going to give away something.
Exactly. Awesome. Let's talk about the TV plushes here really quick. I think I know the answer to this question. But what's I'll just say it. Your favorite Barney plush that you created was the Prime plush, I'm assuming, right? Season 2 and 3's plush.
Yeah. We designed and built in the very beginning 6 plush dolls from the same pattern.
Wow.
Okay. Let's get this right. 6, folks. Just 6.
Wow.
Now, we only used 3 of them.
Really?
So when you have groups like Barney Wiki and all that coming up with all these stories about all these different plushes and everything, you would think we had 1,000 of them to work with.
Yeah.
No, we had 3. One of them was the one I have here. You kind of see him in the background there. Yeah. Okay. That is the stunt double. He was used strictly for rehearsals, you know, and setting up scenes and stuff. And then we had one, what we call the Hero Studio doll. Now, he was used in season 1 through 4. Okay. 1 through 4. Same doll, same skin. Only he was rebuilt each time and improved. Like at first he had no toes.
Yeah.
I think he might not have had any spots, but by the time we had some scenes where he needed to see his back, he had his spots. And then by season 2, he had his toes and the eyes were reworked. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why I've claimed, and we got proof that those 3 dolls were used, because the other 3 dolls one went to Ray Henry, one I built, and okay, here he is here. This one.
Oh, cool.
This is a replica, but he's got the same pattern. Get him in the light here so you can see him.
Yeah.
There he goes. Anyway, so there was 3 of these, and the 3 of them went to the Stitcher, Carol Davis. I kept one, and Ray kept one, and they're not for sale.
Yeah.
So there's one doll that I didn't mention, and that one went to Cheryl Leach. Now,
Cool.
where that doll is, I don't know. But
Yeah.
that's the doll that was sent around to the toy companies to make replications and prototypes to show the Barney group of what they could make. So
That's
there's
cool.
your 6 dolls.
I did not. So I didn't know that it was that same season 1 through 4. It was the exact same doll, because season 2 and 1, they look drastically different from each other, and I think it's because the reworked eyes and the toes, and he kind of his form got a little bit more closer to the costume itself.
Absolutely. Let me show you. You want to come in here and talk? You want to come here? Hi. Carol just showed up.
Oh, hi. Hi, Carol.
Maybe she'll come and say hi. You want to say hi? You want to see this Barney? Anyway, let me show you this one. See, this is the stunt double.
Okay.
That's a stunt double. And he's featherweight. He has no weight at all. There's no armatures inside. No spots.
Whoa, that's weird. That's kind of weird.
No toes. But as you see, he is the same Barney that you saw in the tire swing.
For sure.
Because he was filmed by accident one time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I think it's episode 4, season 1, something like that. Of course, some of the fans have reminded me of that occurrence, and I just said, well, boo-boos happen on set.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So anyway, now the plushes weigh about the studio ones, the heroes weigh a good 2 pounds heavier because of the armature that's inside.
Sure. The
steel wire and the wooden block and the flexibility so he could wave. You could set him up to wave, set him up so he didn't fall over. You could shape the tripod legs and the tail so that it would stay put. Now, some foreign Barneys that were made, they put a leg back here, extra leg, to keep them standing.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So
that's really amazing.
Just a little insight.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Where are you now outside of Barney plush fans and kind of the Barney community? What is Jess Nelson up to these days?
Okay, that's a good story. I'll plug something I'm doing. Back in the 1970s, I did a lot of sculpture work, and I worked with metal, gold, silver, and created these lines of sculptures that were produced by the thousands and sold in stores, museums, art galleries.
Wow.
Okay, here's one of them.
That's really neat.
This is these are dolphins over a blue coral.
Awesome.
It was actually used in some sailboat races in the California Newport Beach area.
Oh, cool.
But, these sculptures are like 50 years old, and a lot of them are in need of repair. So people have been sending them in to me, and I've been restoring them. And in November, I'm going to come up with a new series of silver sculptures. That's where I'm spending my time when I have time.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I love seeing. It's always exciting to see people who are creative do this vast amount of different things.
It's sort of forced upon me as people were calling and saying, "What do I do with this? It's broken," and it broke my heart that they have a broken sculpture. I said, "Send it to me. I'll fix it." So that got me working again, and that's great. I do it part-time. If anybody's really interested, they can go on Facebook. We have a page. It's called Jess Nelson's 1970 sculptures, okay, or 1970 sculptures by Jess Nelson. Yeah, you can find it.
Yeah. Well, we'll when I upload this, we'll post a link and all of that too. So if people want to check that out,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of fans interested in what I'm doing nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I'm retired, but here's who I take care of. Come here. Come on. You want to get on TV? Come here, just for a second. Come on. Here she comes. Here she comes. This is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Say hi.
Nice to meet you.
See, right there. Say hi. Anyway.
Good to see you. So that's awesome. So you rebuilt those sculptures, but you also rebuilt toys as well, correct?
Okay, could you ask me that one more time?
Yeah. You said you rebuilt those sculptures, but you also rebuild and repair toys as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Actually, Carol and I went together and formed a nonprofit called Fix a Toy. And we rebuild toys. People, donate his toys. They could be broken. They could be just new toys. I mean, we take in, all kinds of toys. And then we turn around, clean them, rehabilitate the toy, and then we give it away. We don't sell them or anything. We give them to some charities, women's shelters, and we do it with also pet toys too, to shelters and adoption agencies. So it's a fun thing. Carol and I can share. She loves her toy collection. She collected plush toys all her life, and she's a huge plush toy collection, and she loves children and pets, and still relates to them quite well. Yeah. So it was fun for us to do that, and so it's just kind of a love of ours, giving us something we can still participate with.
And you get to give back to those families and kids and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a beautiful thing.
It's a fun project.
Yeah. This is kind of a fun question. I don't know how well it can be answered, but it's hypothetical. If you were asked to come back to a new version of Barney to create a set, what would that look like? Would you go back to the basics of like the schoolyard kind of thing, or would you try something new? Is there something that you wanted to try with the show that didn't happen, or something like that?
Well, yeah, in hindsight, I don't think that would ever happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't really believe that would ever happen. But there were things I would have liked to have done. I would have liked to gone back to the schoolhouse or backyard, because I always thought that the show should be rooted in a common, universal place where young children felt comfortable. And that would either be at home with their backyard, or in school with a teacher, mentor. And so I thought that was always an ideal place. And if I was going to do that, I'd do that. But then also, I would have liked to have seen Barney as a dinosaur see more of his history in the Jurassic sense, so that you can see that maybe his real world was in the Jurassic, and he was just this offshoot. Because little kids, they save real dinosaur toys.
For sure.
Look like, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, that look like, all the dinosaurs. And so that's how they got hooked on dinosaurs. And that's what made Barney popular, because they could relate to something special, like those special animals. So I would have loved to have done something with that. I don't know what I would have built, but I was pretty good at coming up with jungles and trees and tree houses and stuff like that.
For sure. Definitely. That would have been something really interesting to see. I agree. Did you ever follow the series after you left? Have you followed the seasons and videos and things that came after that at all?
I didn't follow them closely. I frankly was too busy building other film and video projects. But I did collect a bunch of videos and videotapes and CDs and things that I could get a hold of. And then every once in a while, I would see if I could catch a program just to see what they were doing.
Sure.
But I'm not a historian when it comes past, series 3 and 4, because I've got Ray Henry, our director, who's had deep knowledge that I didn't have, because he was the logistics person for the costumes and traveled all over the world with them, and also ran the department for us. So he's still a real close friend. And so I know some of the things that happened in season 4, but I was not there, for it.
Gotcha. Let's talk about, let's talk about it here now. As we all know, we have this new version of Barney that's being worked on and supposedly coming next year, Barney's World. What are your thoughts on that show? Is there any optimism for an animated Barney series? Or do you think it's something that could work?
Yes, I do, because I have seen over the years, and even when I was with Barney, there were animators. They were spoofs, they were making fun of Barney, or they were just coming up with something to be silly. But there were some very good Barney animations that looked like Barney, but he was an animated version. And so, I think something could be done that would be a pretty show, as long as they have the same fundamentals and the same basics that we had, in the first years, say the first 3 years. 2 years mainly, in my mind, but have those principles. And then I think they could work around that. Of course, as expensive today, putting together a live costume Barney show would be, I don't think any producer wants to take on that kind of bill. But if they did, man, some of the things you could do, imagination-wise, magical-wise, film-wise, with special effects, and with the digitalization and the places you can put the characters, you could do so much with it. But again, it won't be popular. It won't make any money unless you make it for the 4-year-olds.
For sure. I wholeheartedly agree. I think I've said the same thing about the animated show, is if they keep the core of who the character is, Barney could work in live action and animation in any realm, as long as you keep who that character is and what made him so popular to begin with kids. And so I'm optimistic. I don't speak about it much. I don't give much of an opinion outside of this podcast. Just to wait and see what happens first.
I want to see where it goes. I was a little shocked, I have to admit, to see what they came up with for a costume, or they're calling it a costume. And the character, the changes they made, I was frankly shocked. We had spent, I had spent, and our team spent, and our whole production spent so much time creating that image and guarding it and protecting it and replicating it, and the millions of dollars that was spent replicating and keeping that costume, standardizing it, that, I have some personal feelings about it, but I don't want to talk about that.
But I think it's...
I'll watch. I'll see. Let's see where it goes.
I think it makes sense for any of you who was on that show. I think anyone who was connected to that show, it was part in creating what that show became to be, you would have those personal feelings. I always say, I talked to the other admins last week, and I was just talking about how amazing it was that somehow at the very start of Barney, it has to be that Barney magic that people talk about, how well we had you and Ray Henry and, you know, that art team. We had Steve White and Mark Bernthal. You have Cheryl Leach, David Joyner, but all of these, I would say arguably the best of whoever could have been a part of Barney to be at the very start of it. I think if there was ever one person missing from that equation or a few people and it went a different direction, we might not have had the show that we have that has lasted so long. Things just seem to align perfectly somehow for you guys.
Yeah.
In those late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, the universe came together then, and that team of just remarkable talent. You know, Dallas at the time was being called the third coast for filmmaking. It was because there was, of course, New York, there was Hollywood, and then there was Dallas at that time. It was just because of the tax incentives that made for film companies to come in and work. And then there was the studios at Las Colinas. That was a huge facility that was geared towards filmmaking. And there was so much talent that was unknown that worked on all those shows that came, that it was just a beautiful group to pick from, and we all came together. Now, I didn't pick them. I mean, it was Dynasty Shazer and Kathy Barker and Cheryl Leach. But yeah, that was quite a team. And to work with a group like that was very rewarding, you know.
For sure.
And it's to their credit that Barney was successful. It's that group. The group that put it together originally, they're the ones you have to thank for. And doing such a great job, it carried it for so many years. Yeah. Staying with that similar philosophy with the show carried it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah,
if just new producers would realize that, you know, and not try to put their own spin on it, they'd have a success on their hands. I'm sure of it.
That's the one thing that does bother me with Barney's World is that the way Barney was created, he stands the test of time. My daughter is 2 years old, and she loves, all she watches is my show and Barney, and she watches all of them. See, Backyard Gang era stuff, all the way to the Riff era things, the in between, and it's all the same to her. Obviously, elements change and things, but the core of what Barney was, how he looked, how he acted, was the same. And that's what I wish they would realize with this new show, is that you don't have to give him a new look and change things drastically. The way he would work in any moment in time.
Yeah. You know, I have 2 great grandchildren. They're both little boys. Okay.
Yeah.
But they love BJ.
Oh yeah.
And they have BJ dolls. Now they're watching Barney, but they're attracted to the little yellow guy. One of them is 3.5, almost 4 years old, and the other one is still 1 year old. But still, they hug those dolls. They love them. So, you know, a new generation is there, and it can be taken care of, not advantage of, but care of, if the right production would realize it.
For sure. 100% I agree. Before we finish up here, one part that we always do on our podcast is when we have a guest come on, we ask them to bring some Barney item that just maybe means the most to them out of all the things that they might own. And we ask them to share that with us. I think I might know what item you have, but what item do you have? And can you just kind of explain why it's that item that you decide to choose?
Okay. Well, I showed you one of them, and that's the stunt double. You know, he still represents the very first design that, you know, when I designed him, I designed a styrofoam sculpture, and then Ray Henry made patterns from it. So, and then those patterns went to Carol Davis, who's a genius at building doll clothes and working very tight situation, stitch-wise. And so then it went to her to make the skins. Then the skins came back to us, and then Ray and I sculptured them, stuffed them, and did all the eyeballs and the toes and all that kind of thing. So
yeah,
he represents to me mostly of what I have a physical item that means a lot to me. And the other one was, let's see, oh, if you want to,
sure.
Here's a little souvenir. Maybe you've seen this post.
Oh, I love that picture.
Yeah, it's Bob West and David Joyner with personal notes to me. You know,
that's awesome.
And maybe they're too personal to talk about, but
sure.
to me, that's one of my favorite things.
That's
working
awesome.
with those guys. We traveled together into London when Barney was expanding into international Barneys, and you know, love those guys.
That's awesome.
We did a lot of sightseeing together.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't have that question. I didn't even think about it, but I'll ask it now. You said you guys traveled, and so you did London. Did you travel anywhere else that was outside of the country with Barney?
No, there was a purpose why I was in London. It just happened to be the same time that they were introducing Barney to London. But I'm glad I was there because I had some English friends that really helped iron out some of the bumps that became obvious when we got to London. No one knew about Barney. And unfortunately, there was a character in London called Mr. Blobby, who was big, 7 foot tall, pink, magenta colored character that was running around London, accosting people, throwing them to the ground, sitting on them at bus stops and doing really rude things. And so initially, the advertising agency said, well, this Blobby character's getting tons of play, free news play, television every night, doing these rude things. And so some genius there thought that, well, this character Barney should do something similar to that and we'll get some free news coverage. So they had to be kind of geared, you know, move their ideas a little bit. And I was glad I was there. Miss Sloan was the production person in charge of that. And she did a tremendous job of introducing Barney around the world and with the concerts and stuff. That's a whole phase of part of Barney that I wasn't really involved in a whole lot, and that's the concerts. I was with the first one, the Majestic Theater one, but Barney went out on his concert. Like I said, Concert Barney was so successful, and still is. Concert Barney is still occurring all over the world still in places, and so that's a whole world of its own. It wasn't part of the video world, but it was very successful. Sloan Coleman, that's who it was.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember right away. I didn't have a lot of dealings with her, but when I did, it was enjoyable. She's a very, very talented person.
Yeah, we love Sloan Coleman.
And then what else about that? You were asking about being introduced into England. At that time, I was working with a very famous television group in England because they were very good puppeteers, building puppets, had a tremendous crew. And we kind of brought them in. It's Cheryl Leach's direction to bring in this group and help us do the sculpturing because they were super at doing this thing. That was Spitting Image, which was a TV show that was immensely popular in England. Rude and crude at many times, Spitting Image, but they had puppets that looked like all the major individuals in the world, famous and infamous. But they were super good at crafting and sculpturing. So we enlisted them to help. And they were good at making soft sculptures because they used teams from Brian Henson's group, you know, the Jim Henson son, who was working in England and building all those tremendous costumes for their shows. So the same talent, you know, the craftsmen, the sculptors, the soft sculptures, the stitchers, and the costume builders were just tremendous, and I learned a ton. And they really helped form the core of our own costume department to show us how to keep costumes and sew and stitch, and so all these ideas came together so we could standardize that costume and do such a great job of it.
That's great. One more question for the beginning of Barney, like around season 1. I think I have seen places you had created. There were 3 characters that you created for season 1 that ended up not being used. Is that correct? Wasn't there a frog and a couple other things?
Yeah. Well, season 1, the idea was that they wanted to make sure that the emphasis of the characters was on Barney.
Sure.
And anything that might take a little show away from him at that time, okay?
Yes.
They didn't want to promote. But yeah, we had some really fun characters that, again, started off in a script, thanks to Stephen White. And then I created the characters from his description of them. There was going to be a frog. It was a rock and roll frog.
Cool.
And then there was going to be, and these were going to be musical characters. Then there was a singing cow, and there was a Rastafarian rooster. So cool. It was supposed to come up with these, different musical themes, which would have been fun if it was presented 3 years later. Because they were not too much worried about the success of Barney or any competition from characters to take down, the icon.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think later on it might have worked because they were fun, and there could have been some fun scripts made using the Big Bopper.
Oh yeah,
Big Hopper. Okay,
it
was called the Big Hopper, and then Clarabelle Cow.
Cool.
Kind of a Dolly Partonish kind of singing cow.
Sure.
No offense, Dolly.
Yeah.
But then the other one was the Rastafarian rooster, and I forget what they called him, but those were fun characters, and they could have been a lot of fun.
For sure.
I would have made puppets up, and not full size characters, but work the puppet team, like we did, like we had worked Clarence, the goose. He was fun. I did a lot of puppeteering for those early shows. We didn't, we wore a lot of hats. There wasn't a ton of us to go out and hire there wasn't any money to go hire a bunch of people to do specialized things and everything. So we all did what we did. We had a little talent doing puppets. We did puppets. Ray Henry was really good at puppetry, and I was, I thought I was.
Yeah.
And we had my whole team, my construction head, Charles Bailey. He was good at sculpturing puppets, and he was good at pulling the strings. When we had a marionette style hand puppet, like the frog on the log. So we did things with them. We tried to make as much magic out of those puppets as we could.
For sure.
And when the kids couldn't handle a puppet show or all of it, or might have fallen apart a little bit, well, we even stepped in and were substitutes for some of the kids' puppetry. So yeah, definitely. It was fun.
Yeah, well, you guys did a wonderful job. I think I have you all to thank, everyone who was a part of that show, for helping with my childhood. And I honestly don't think I would be where I am today doing the kind of work that I do today if it wasn't for all of you. So I know I said it when we first started this, but I want you to know really how much we appreciate, at least me personally, you and everyone that was a part of that show.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and the feeling's mutual. We think that you're just carrying on the torch in the world of children's television, and congratulations. And
thank you.
And we'll follow you more closely now. Now that I get to really know you, okay, we will.
Yeah,
I worked up in Nebraska, in Sidney, Nebraska, for the Cabela family. So I spent 6 years in Nebraska, and you're out of Omaha, right?
Yeah, not too far.
traveled there, been there, done that.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's cool to know.
Yeah. Yeah, we worked for the Cabela family in building their home museum, which maybe someday will be public. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's a lot of mural work there I did.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Before we end it here, the last question that I just like to ask everyone is just, I guess it's kind of a two-parter. Why Barney? And is there anything from your time working with Barney that you learned from that character that sticks with you today?
Interesting. Why Barney? Yeah, that was a question I asked myself in the beginning.
Yeah.
But and then I got too busy to think about it.
Yeah.
But you know, Barney is a needed character, just as any super character was needed at the time. Mickey Mouse, you know, at the time the world needed a character like that, that people could feel some happiness, warmth from. Well, children, at the time of Barney, they needed that. Children needed the love and the caring and the happiness and the sharing, the caring and the sharing. I always refer to those words all the time. And I think that seeing Barney in action at the hospitals and the nursery centers and seeing the reaction of the children, that a lot of them had really no hope for long survivals, but how they just came alive, the love that they showed and the love that Barney gave them back. It was all worth it. It's all worth it. No matter what happens with him today, we still have all of that.
For sure. Definitely. Well, I don't think there's any other way to top what you just said. So I think we'll end it there. Again, Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. History fans, thank you guys so much for following this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. There's still that Google form out there for fans if you want to be on the show. Just put your name in. And hopefully one day here soon, we'll see you in your spot of love. Take care.
Bye-bye.